Hey bosses, it's Kay from Asian Boss. When we made a video about being an American in China previously, a lot of our viewers seemed fascinated that there were so many Americans living in China. Naturally, you asked us about their dating life in China, because of course, that's the most important question to ask right now. While we do a lot of serious reporting here at Asian Boss, hey, we can always have a little bit of fun exploring cultural differences between Asia and the West, right? So what's it really like dating in China for Americans? Let's find out.
Where are you from and how long have you been living in China?
I'm from Texas. I've been living in China almost 5 years.
So I'm from the DC, Virginia area in the United States, and I moved to China in 2018.
I'm from the United States, the state of Georgia, so the South, and I've been living in China for about a year and a half at this point.
I grew up in New Jersey in the U.S., and I've been in China about 3 years.
I'm from Philadelphia, the States. I've been in China since 2017.
I'm from Chicago, Illinois, so the U.S., and I've been in China for 15 years now.
So today we want to find out a little bit about what it's like dating in China as an American. So have you started dating or have you dated anyone in the 15 years that you've been here?
Yeah, I had a Chinese partner for 2 years on and off, and then recently I just broke up like 3 weeks ago, so single and ready to mingle. But we dated for about a year.
Actually, I moved to China because my boyfriend from grad school we met in New York is Chinese, and now he's my husband of 2.5 years.
Okay. So why are you open to dating a Chinese person?
For me, dating someone, it doesn't matter what their ethnicity or their race. It's just I'm definitely a big personality person, so I like the person's personality.
I'm sorry.
How explicit do you want me to? No, I'm kidding. I mean, I think that I don't know if there's a reason, but I am attracted to Chinese guys as much as any other guys. The way that I see it too, if you're not dating local Chinese, you're missing out on a really beautiful bunch of people that make up the majority of the population here. So there's also something I've found really gratifying about the cultural exchange that comes from it as well, even if it's not something that develops romantically or into anything else. I've had some really amazing conversations and getting to know a little bit more about the queer scene through their eyes is also really cool.
So can you talk a little bit more about the LGBTQ scene here in Shanghai?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Living day to day, you can really be pretty open and pretty comfortable as a gay person. I think that the tension a lot of times for Chinese guys, from the experiences I've had and the conversations I've had, comes more from a family perspective and a personal struggle than it does often from the day-to-day walking around the city, because Shanghai typically has a very you do your own thing kind of perspective on stuff.
How do you typically meet Chinese people in the first place to date?
Well, usually the hookup apps like Tinder, Grindr, these kinds of hookup apps. And then if something kind of develops, you go from there. But often I've noticed with Chinese people, they'll have friends and be like, oh, I have someone who'd be perfect for you. But the couple of times that happened, it was not, the sparks did not fly. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Do you have any stories like that to
Oh
tell?
my God. Okay, so my least favorite thing is a bad English name. So my Chinese name, I had a Chinese person give me my Chinese name because I didn't want to choose a name that made Chinese people go, oh my God, what was he thinking? That's a horrible name, right? So I hate names like Coach, Prada. So I went on a date with this one woman, and I was like, oh, what's your English name? And she was like, oh, it's Gucci. And yeah, no. The name was probably also the most interesting thing about her. So yeah, it was not a great date.
So could you tell me a little bit more about dating apps in China, especially Tantan? I know that's a very big one. What was your experience like using them?
Well, the thing about dating apps in China, you have your pictures, and a lot of people, it's very big Chinese culture to edit the pictures, but it's not even just editing, like tweaking a thing here, tweaking a thing there. It's more like changing their whole face. So like when you see someone in person, it's like, huh? That doesn't match.
So even the guys do this. What are some of the things that they typically change in their pictures?
Well, like the general like Chinese thing I would say is make their face lighter. So like some of their pictures, they be looking like ghosts. They're like just really, really white. Sometimes they like slender like jaws a little bit and make their eyes a little big, similar to the girls actually, I feel. It's like I've taken pictures with people and before like sending it to me, they always edit both of us. Or taking a picture, like then they instantly edit it before saving it. So like it's a huge culture thing, I feel.
Sometimes they can maybe kind of fantasize black woman. Oh, you have curves. I love curves. And I'm like, I'm fully dressed in all of my pictures. I don't think I'm showing any inch of my curves. And so the fact that they're like just fantasizing that black women are normally more shapely or more round or voluptuous in my case than Asian women, sure. But again, I'm looking for a real connection, not just someone to sleep with. So a lot of times it's, can we get past the surface level things and make a real connection? Something like that.
From your experience, do you think Chinese people are open to dating Americans, or in your specific relationship, was he kind of open to dating an American?
No. So when we first met, it was kind of like, we're young, this is fun, but we didn't see a future together because, well, mainly his family, his parents were like, no way. The first rule was kind of like, you're going to America to study, but don't bring back an American girl. And so we kind of ended our relationship because of all of that after graduation. But then I guess love overcame and we kind of just worked through the culture barriers and just kind of made things work with his family.
A lot of Chinese parents want Chinese grandchildren, and they want to keep their daughter here in China. Even if I intend to stay in China, they still have that fear of, where's my daughter going to be? Is she going to be in another country? Where's my grandchildren going to be in another country? Things like that.
Yes, I think they're very, some of them aren't, but the ones who aren't don't talk to me. So I don't know. The ones I have talked to are they like foreigners. They think foreigners are cool, and they especially like foreigners who can speak Chinese, but they don't really care. Usually they really, really want to learn English. That's why they go to talk to foreigners, because they really want to learn English. Learning English is a very valuable skill in China and in the world in general, so it's something they want to do. And so they don't really care too much about dating foreigners, yeah.
When it comes to dating and relationships, what are some of the biggest cultural differences that were a little challenging for you?
Okay, biggest one. Straight up, the biggest one that I always bump into, because as a kid I was taught to say thank you all the time. Chinese girls, especially like or Chinese people in general, but mainly Chinese girls, if they want to be close friends with you, whenever they hear thank you from you, they're like, don't say thank you. They get uncomfortable because they feel like saying thank you puts distance between you and them. And I don't really like that because I'm very uncomfortable with not saying thank you. So I say thank you all the time, which I think is probably a problem of mine, but that's the biggest thing that's kind of uncomfortable. Because Chinese girls always kind of get mad at me. They're like, hey, don't say thank you. I don't like you saying thank you to me. And I'm like, okay, geez, I'm just trying to be polite to you.
From what I understand, Chinese women are very much like, can this guy provide security? So can you buy me a house? What is your job? How much money do you make? And so when I'm not asking such questions and just really taking the time trying to understand who's this person, their character, their interests, their professional life and aspirations, all these things, maybe that's unusual to them. And so maybe sometimes the conversation can seem dull, or if I'm feeling super adventurous and I'm like, let's go on a date that involves going for a bike ride around the city. They're like, what? You want to go for a bike ride? I'm like, yes, don't wear anything fancy, put on some comfortable pants that you can go riding in and they are maybe taken aback by that just slightly. So I think maybe compared to how Chinese women are very much like money, house, can you do it? I'm like, no, I'm interested in getting to know you and understanding you, your character, and is it a good fit for me?
You're expected to kind of live with your husband's parents after marriage, and it's so interesting that they grow up my husband went to boarding school since 7 years old until college, so he never really lived with his parents. But now that we're grown-ups, we're expected to kind of spend every day together and live together. So I think that's the biggest cultural difference from the US. You know, most people don't live with their parents after they get married, and it's kind of the reverse here. You go back and live with your parents after you've been married, and just kind of expected to have like 3 generations in one house. And so it's actually not as bad as it sounds, but I don't know if it's going to influence our relationship as we like grow our family. And you know, my baby's small right now, but maybe later I'm going to want to raise her a certain way, and I don't know if the cultural influence is gonna, you know, I'm gonna say like, no, let's do it my way. And so next interview.
My first partner that I dated for 2 years could never come to my house without bringing a present. Even after we dated, it'd be like food, some snacks, maybe just like a keychain. It'd be like random gifts. And finally I had to tell him, like, please stop bringing gifts every time. It makes me feel awkward that you bring a gift when we're dating, because you don't have to like give me a gift to enter my apartment, right? But for him, I think it made him feel weird if he didn't bring a gift and he was coming to visit me, right?
So it's like still courting you even after you're dating.
I don't know if it's courting or if it's just Chinese custom. I think it's customary for Chinese people to bring like fruit or something, you know, whenever they go to a house that isn't their own.
Is there anyone that a Chinese person you dated was surprised by that you did subconsciously as an American that's normal in American relationships, but maybe not so much here in China?
You know, I planned an answer to this question, and it's totally different now, but it's true. Probably farting.
Wait, what?
So, you know, American men in particular think that farting is hilarious, right? So, but I think Chinese men don't think it's quite as funny, or women. So like if you just do it, even if it's, you know, I think the American rule is like after about 3 to 6 months, you can kind of like, you could break it into the relationship. But I don't know if that's the thing here. I've noticed that there's some hesitance to like, even if you've been together a year, yeah, there's no flatulence if you can avoid it.
And do you have any fun stories that you can share about Chinese parents?
Yeah, they like you to drink a lot, especially the fathers, because I think that sometimes they're nervous because they don't speak any English. And my Chinese, it goes up to a certain point, but once you start talking politics and all that kind of stuff, they want to know about what I think about Biden and Trump and whoever, Obama, and so yeah, lube it all with a lot of baijiu, and that seems to help out. And
the girl that I was dating recently has talked a lot about the kinds of setup dates that she's gone on, you know, because I don't know if this is common knowledge, but a lot of Chinese parents try to set their kids up on dates, you know, of people that they would find to be very eligible, you know, and you know, sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, I do think it works in a lot of situations because you know, maybe sometimes that would be an avenue to meet somebody that, you know, your parents would approve of, and therefore it kind of shortcuts the whole question of like, oh, are my parents okay with me dating this person, you know, blah, blah, blah. The girl that I was dating recently told me that, so her parents paid for a big part of her house in Shanghai, and then they're using that as pressure to tell her that she needs to go on these setup dates. You know, it's like, hey, I got you the house, you know, you can't even go on this one date. So that's kind of funny.
The first time I met his mom, it was graduation, so my parents had already known my then boyfriend for like a year and a half. They're like, oh, we need to take his parents to dinner, they're visiting from China, whatever. His mom was like, did not say one word the whole dinner. She was like freaked out. She had like a super, like, you know, bitch face the whole time, just like and then after at the end of dinner, she's like, you're flying back to China tomorrow. And then, so that was really freaky because she was kind of saw it as like, you're trying to join our two families and I'm not having this. And now she loves me. But that was kind of intense. Like my sisters were at dinner and they were freaked out. Like, dude, this lady wants to kill you.
So what kind of got them to turn around and accept you?
I think it actually was more my husband. He just kind of made up his mind with his parents. He's like, hey, this is who I want to be with. You need to accept it. And if you don't, I'm just going to still do it. And so I think that's what a lot of Chinese kids or like people our age need to kind of just like step up and show their parents, because they grew up in really different times. And you know, like my in-laws, when they were growing up, they remember when there was no food and these kind of, and then China just like, they became well established, they started their businesses and everything just moved up and changed. So they've seen so much. And I think when their kids were born, they were born into a different time, a different generation. So that might be the biggest problem. There's a lot of generation gap, and sometimes the parents don't understand their kids. So if kids are more firm about what they want, I think the parents will respect it.
Okay, so when it comes to dating and relationships, what are some of the biggest cultural difficulties that you've experienced?
I don't think this is, necessarily every single Chinese person is like this, but something that I am personally is very expressive about my emotions. I'm pretty fiery. I'm very exuberant. I like to have conversations that go really in depth about how I feel. I like to have emotional support in my relationships. And the couple times that I've dated Chinese guys, I don't feel like there's an expectation to be as straightforward with the communication. I think that people typically gravitate more towards I'm saying this, which you should understand means this, whereas I want to hear exactly what you mean, exactly as it said. And also, with the guy that I'm dating currently, everything is okay with him. And I'm like, you don't have to be okay all the time. I actually would rather have you tell me and come to me when you're upset and vent and talk, and he's just like, no, I'm fine.
Are there any stereotypes you've had to deal with while going on dates or while just meeting people online about you being American?
I feel like the biggest one is that Americans are easy. I actually went on a date with a guy quite recently, and I'm a very direct person, I think, as most Americans are, and I'm not really shy to talk about sex necessarily, and I think that's really mind-blowing to some Chinese guys, especially that they're like, wow, a girl's talking about sex, this must mean she wants sex. And I'm like, that's not necessarily the case. It's not an issue to me. It's not a big deal to me. But I feel like for them, that it's something that they never really talk about. So if I talk about sex, then I think that gives certain kinds of they have certain kinds of ideas of what that means. But one of them, he was kept trying to push to go back to my place, and I was like, I don't want to, and I will not invite you to my house, and no. And that's happened a couple times.
I was thinking before I came here that everyone's going to be extremely serious, but some people are very serious. Most people aren't, actually. That's something I found out. Tragically found it.
Do you think that's an age thing?
Yes, definitely. So if it's weird. The younger people usually are more into that committed stuff. But everyone in Shanghai, for the most part, especially that's older than me, they always don't want anything serious at all. In fact, they're extremely casual. One girl was so casual, she just dumped me. It was a very awkward story. We went to a Costco, and I was she wanted me to take pictures of her in Costco because girls like taking pictures of themselves. And I was really uncomfortable with that because people were shopping. So I was like, I can't do it. I don't want to take the pictures. And she got really mad at me. And because our relationship was really casual, she just said, screw you, and dumped me right there. I had to walk home. It really sucked.
Wait, she dumped you in the Costco?
She dumped me outside the Costco. She said, I was like, hey, could you get a taxi to bring me home? Because my phone was out of batteries. I didn't charge it that night. And she said, you can go home by yourself. I'm like, really? And Yeah, I had
Wait, do you know why? It's maybe because the pictures you took weren't good, or?
No, I didn't take pictures. I refused. I said, listen, I'm way too uncomfortable. I was like, I'm really sorry. I'm way too uncomfortable to do this. And then she said, she just got irritated with me. She got mad at me, and then she just straight up dumped me.
Overall, what has your dating experience in China taught you about Chinese culture?
One thing it's taught me is that Chinese culture is changing. That's what I have to say. It's because I'm very surprised that Chinese people are a lot more open than I had once thought, and it shows the difference between young people and older Chinese people, because older Chinese people I don't think would be so open. And it might just show the difference between different locations. I mean, because the girls I talked to who didn't live in big cities, I think they were a lot more conservative than the ones who live in the big cities like Shanghai. I think those ones are a lot more open and outgoing in that sense, where they just want to be in casual relationships.
I think it really just reaffirms that cultural differences are just that, but people are people, right? We are looking for meaningful connection, friendship, love, romance, good relationships, regardless of our culture, our history, our circumstances. Like, we're all looking for a connection. So no matter where they're from, Chinese for this instance, I think it's just about making connection with the one who's right for you. So whether they express it or search for it in a way that I think is kind of odd, well, that's just my thinking, but this is their culture, and I can see it and understand that this is their culture and this is how it's different from my culture.